Hello and welcome to the Beef Edge, the Teagasc Beef Podcast, for all your latest news, information and advice for Irish beef farmers. I'm Catherine Egan, and on this week's episode, it's the second part of a two-part interview. I'm joined by Jim Ryan, owner of Ryan's Farm, who operates a premium on-farm butchers alongside his farm in Kells, County Meath. On this week's episode, Jim describes how he manages the cattle from purchase to finish and tips he has for farmers considering this career path.
We now buy in small Angus and Hereford heifers, anything from about 6 months, 7 months, up to about a year, up to about 13 months of age. We buy them all year round, but we haven't been able to buy them, very little of them, for the last 4 months because they've been very, very expensive. But they come into us and we graze them grass-fed until they become fit. We don't feed meal. There's 220 mid-season ewes here. They're lambed. And they're fed with the cattle. We graze the sheep. All the sheep are always running through the cattle. They always graze them together. But we don't top that much. We find very little need for topping.
And what are the targets that you are using for the heifers once they come onto the farm over the first winter?
Well, what we generally do with them, if the bulk of them do come in here in September, October, November, they generally go on 2 kilos of rolled barley, which we roll ourselves. And they stay on that till about the first week in January, and then they go on good silage till let out.
And once they're turned out, how are they managed then?
They run through we don't have to separate them, but we generally keep about 16 to 20 of the best of the cattle are generally kept in the fields next to the cattle chutes, so they're easily loaded every week when we go out to get them. But we don't run a paddock-based system, but we do move cattle about if someplace gets strong with the number of sheep. We're not strictly paddock-based, but we do move numbers around if something gets ahead of us.
And what size group do you manage then with ewes and heifers?
Oh, it could be Antonin, it could be, there could be say 25, 30 cattle running with 50, 70 ewes and their lambs.
And moving on to the finishing period then, what are you looking for the heifers to achieve over that time?
Well, but we generally are killing the Hereford and the Angus cattle anywhere from 220 to 290 kilos dead weight. We don't feed meal. I believe it to be nothing but a bad habit. And we simply wait for them. It's patience. I'd often notice we'd be out looking at cattle and wonder, would we have fit cattle in 2 or 3 weeks' time? And you get this urge, should you be feeding meal? But we're beginning to find just have patience and they come fit when they're ready.
I suppose the key thing for you is having a continuous supply for customers. So how do you manage that aspect?
Well, we would always be generally carrying some number of heifers more than we would want. And so they're always there. And if we get a number of cattle that become too fit, we simply kill them in Moy Valley Meats. It doesn't happen too often, but we let them off to Moy Valley Meats. And the lambs is not a problem because we can kill lambs dead weight 18 to 26, 27 kilos dead weight. Our preferred lamb is 23. But if some of the lambs get heavy, it's not a problem. So we're not pushed. The fact that they're not being meat fed, they're not coming in a big hurry. So we generally kill our lambs the whole way from June to the following June. So they're here the whole year round, and the lambs remained out all year round.
Great. And you mentioned there that the sheep and cattle are mixed grazing. How do you find that they work together on the farm?
I think it's absolutely vital. I think an awful lot of farms are after losing the key to successful grazing because one likes what the other doesn't want. And I absolutely would not be able to manage the farm here unless I had mixed grazing. The sheep are an absolute godsend because there's no pressure there's no pressure run out making round bales or anything like that. They're magnificent combination together.
And from a herd health point of view, what is your herd health plan?
We generally the cattle that come in from the sales October, November, we give them an IRB to get them one up the nose. And we do them from rumen and fluke. We've got caught a few times with rumen and fluke, and they're done for worms. That's really that's it. And then put on 2 kilos of barley, and that's them up and set up for the winter. And
once they're turned out to grass the following year?
Yes, we do try to isolate them when they do come home from the sales. They don't go down to the slatted shed. They go onto a straw bedded shed, and we tend to give them an injection, a 7-day cover injection when they do come, especially on the cold nights and everything. And they would go on a hay diet, say, for certainly a week away from the others before we let them down.
And from once they're turned out to grass the following summer, how are they managed?
Just twice. They're dosed twice. We did them on the back twice this year for hoofs. That was it. When we hear them coughing, we do them.
And like many farmers that you are or be a quality assured, what do you do differently now, or what are you more aware of seeing that you're seeing the produce brought to the other side that you weren't doing before you started your business?
I think the biggest change is the patience we have now. We're certainly not, just driving out of cattle and meal feeding the lambs and meal feeding the cattle. The business we're at now, thankfully, that's all gone. There's absolutely no need for it. The lambs, as I said earlier, they take their time. They come fit when they're ready, when they come fit. So there's been a massive change here for what we used to do. We don't spread fertilizer on any of the grazing ground. We haven't done it in 7 years. The grass keeps coming, and it appears to keep coming. I'm dumbfounded all the time that we have lots of grass and enough grass, so we stock accordingly. So we've stopped all this bulling and rushing, and we have far more patience than we used to have.
And you're taking soil samples from that ground in and targeting your slurry.
Yes, we do. And from the slurry as well. We do have to, I see there's 2 ton of lime to go on a lot of the farm. It will get it. But it's strange. We have pulled back from the fertilizer, and it's unbelievable, the production of the farm still. I'm absolutely shocked at the grass that's coming.
And from a labour point of view, now what you're inputting on the farm, I suppose you're divided between both the business and the farm. What is your labour input on the farm from the beef and sheep systems that you're operating?
Well, we can easily manage it now with the kids, and it's not a problem. We don't cut our own silage. We don't spread our own slurry. So it's totally changed. We can easily manage what we're at now, and we're certainly not overstocked. If anything, we're understocked, but I'm quite happy to be understocked.
So it's a change of labour structure, really, moving from calving, breeding, etc.
And it's a massive change. It's a massive change because the absolute priority is to arrive at the markets with all product 100% and be fit to sell. And nothing can get the way of that. We are in Dublin every Saturday morning at 6:30. We're in Trim at 8 o'clock, and that's where we need to be with everything 100%. So at home becomes very secondary. At home has to suit that business. The home farm has to suit that cater for that, for what's absolutely important now.
Labour is a big factor with regard to the long hours you're putting in at the market. And I suppose farm to fork is something that many farmers listening would have thought about at some stage or other. What advice have you for someone thinking about starting up a farm to fork business?
I would go back to the key advice is a lot of things have changed since we started. The biggest change of all is you must involve the right people. I would say what would be very important to consult would be a food accountant. We have a wonderful accountant now that we didn't have when we started, and his training is in food, and his experience is in food production. So I would go with figures. These people know what you need to do before you even think of it. So it's absolutely is a food accountant. I call our Andy, he's a food accountant, but he's been the most important cog in the wheel here. All key decisions, and the biggest advice I would make is try not to make all the big decisions when you're under pressure. Pamela and I would never make a decision here until we had a 3-way meeting with our brilliant Teagasc advisor, Aidan Fleming, and our accountant, Andy Smith. We find that most critical because it's very easy to make a bad decision when you're not well informed.
Some great advice, Jim. Thanks very much, and I wish you continued success in your business.
Thank you very much.
That's all for this week's episode, and my thanks to Jim for joining me on the show. You can catch up on all other shows and interviews from the Beef Edge podcast on the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie, or you can listen on Apple and Google Podcasts as well as Spotify. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe so you never miss a show. For all other updates from our beef programme, keep an eye on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Until next time, I'm Catherine Egan, and thanks for listening.